You've probably heard of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. I mean, it became this massive global bestseller. But what's the actual philosophy holding it all together? It's way more than just a self-help book. It's right there in the title, An Antidote to Chaos. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack the core ideas, from biology to mythology, that make up the foundation for all those rules. You're about to see how it all connects.
So where are we going to start? Well, believe it or not, our journey begins at the bottom of the ocean, with lobsters. From there, we'll unpack a principle of life that's hundreds of millions of years old. Then we'll look at the world as a drama between two huge forces, and finally, we'll get to what the book calls the antidote. All right, just like I said, we're starting at the bottom of the sea. It turns out, these crustaceans have a shocking amount to teach us about, well, about us.
You know, when you pick up a book about life's big questions, you expect some grand philosophical opening, right? Well, this book doesn't do that. It starts with the humble lobster. Yeah, that's right, the crustacean. It seems like a totally bizarre place to start a book about human potential. Which, of course, leads to the big question, why on earth would a book about life rules start with lobsters? Well, according to the source, it's because their nervous systems are simple enough that they give us this incredible window into the deep, ancient wiring that's all about social behavior. They're the key to a truth about life that's over 350 million years old.
See, when two lobsters want the same turf, they don't just go at it, claws blazing. It's actually this really sophisticated four-step process. First off, they just posture, maybe spray some chemicals to size each other up. Then, if that doesn't settle it, they do this kind of ritual dance. Most of the time it's over by then, because nobody wants to get hurt. Only if all that fails does it actually escalate to real damaging combat. It's a highly evolved system for establishing who's boss.
And what happens after that dance? Well, it completely changes the lobster's brain. The winner gets a shot of serotonin. They literally stand up taller, they're more confident, kind of cocky even. The loser's brain, on the other hand, gets flooded with octopamine, making them cringe and way more likely to back down next time. Their status and their brain chemistry are totally locked together. And here is the absolute kicker, the part that connects it all back to us. Get this, the same kind of drugs, like Prozac, that affects serotonin in humans, can literally make a defeated, cringing lobster willing to fight again. That's incredible. It suggests that our internal status meter, the part of our brain that tracks where we fit in, is unbelievably ancient. So, okay, this whole lobster thing, it's not just some quirky science fact. It's pointing to something way, way bigger. A fundamental rule of existence that the book calls the hierarchy principle. And you see this pattern everywhere. Just like a few lobsters get the best shelters, in pretty much any field, a small number of people end up producing most of the results. It's known as Price's Law, or you might have heard of it as the Pareto distribution. And it creates this powerful feedback loop, right? Winners just tend to keep on winning. And look, this idea isn't new. Not by a long shot. The book points out that it's so fundamental to how we see the world that it's articulated right there in the Bible. It's called the Matthew Principle. It's simply a description of how the world seems to work, for better or for worse. Okay, so if you want to see that ancient principle in today's world, the book gives a pretty staggering example. At one point, just 85 people, 85, had the same amount of wealth as the poorest 3.5 billion people on the planet. Now, this isn't presented as a political take, but as a dramatic, real-world illustration of how this distribution law plays out. So here's the really crucial takeaway from all this. The dominance hierarchy, it's not a modern human invention. I mean, look at this. Lobster ancestors set up these social structures over 350 million years ago. That's way before dinosaurs, way before trees. It's not a product of culture, like capitalism. The book argues it's a permanent feature of the environment itself. And because these hierarchies have basically been around forever, we've evolved to deal with them. The book calls it a master control system deep inside our brains. It's like this ancient calculator that's always running, constantly assessing where we stand in the pecking order. And the results of that calculation directly affect our mood, our confidence, our serotonin. It's the lobster brain inside all of us. Okay, so if hierarchy is the ancient reality of our biology, what's the fundamental reality of our conscious experience? Well, this is where we get to the book's core philosophy, this idea of the world as a drama between two huge forces, order and chaos. The book uses the classic Taoist symbol of yin and yang to break this down. Think of order as everything you know. It's structure, predictability, your job, your family. And then there's chaos. That's the unknown, the unexpected. It's where scary things happen, but it's also where all new things come from. We're always living between those two. All right, now the book makes a pretty blunt claim here. Life is suffering. It's a fundamental truth. We're fragile, we're mortal, and when you're faced with that reality, the argument is that you need something powerful to hold on to, a real system of meaning. Without it, the chaos and the pain of life can just become overwhelming.
So where do you find that meaning? Is it in pure order? No, that becomes rigid and tyrannical. Is it in pure chaos? No way, that's just destruction. According to this philosophy, the sweet spot, the place where life is truly lived, is right on the border, on the line between the two. That's the path.
And that brings us to the payoff, the solution. If life is this constant tightrope walk between what we know and what we don't, how do we get good at walking it? Well, this is where we finally get the antidote to chaos.
So it's pretty simple, really. The rules themselves are the antidote. Every single one is a principle of order that you, the individual, can choose to adopt. The whole idea is to build your own personal fortress of meaning, something strong enough to stand up to the chaos that life is definitely going to throw at you.
So if you boil this whole philosophy down to one central idea, it's this. The path to a meaningful life, the path that makes the suffering worthwhile, is through voluntarily adopting as much individual responsibility as you possibly can. That's it. That's the secret sauce.
And these rules, they're how you actually do it. They're the practical steps. You've got stuff that's super physical and immediate, like Rule 1. And then you've got stuff that's really deep and psychological, like Rule 4. But they all point in the same direction. Take control of what you can control, and start with yourself.
And this is just perfect because it brings us right back to where we started, with the lobster. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. It's not just your mom nagging you about posture. It's the physical act of embodying that winning lobster. The book describes it as a conscious decision to face the difficulty and responsibility of life voluntarily with your eyes wide open. So let's wrap this all up. We are, in a sense, like ancient lobsters, hardwired for hierarchy. We live in a world that's a constant dance between the safety of order and the potential of chaos. And the book's core message is that by taking on individual responsibility, we create the personal structure, the meaning, that we need to walk that line successfully. And so we'll leave you with a question that gets right to the heart of this whole philosophy. If the book is right, and that the most meaningful place to be is on that razor's edge between what's known and what's unknown, between security and growth, it's worth asking yourself, where are you standing right now?